Hello and welcome back to another episode. I am recording from my office today, which means that you're probably going to hear some background noises. Bear with me. I'm hoping to be back in my closet by the time I record my next episode, and I'm just visualizing what my closet looks like. If you've seen me post pictures on my Instagram stories, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It is a stack of boxes and I wheel my office chair in there. I bring my ring light in there. I have my clothes in my closet. It is not at all your picture perfect Pinterest podcast recording studio by any means, but I'm hoping to get back there because that is where the pristine audio quality comes from, is when I'm recording in my closet. But bear with me today. I don't think it's going to take away from any of the value that I have to share in this episode, though, which I am so excited to share with you. So let's just dive straight into things. One of my most frequently asked questions when it comes to Instagram is how to increase story views. And I get why this is my most frequently asked question, or I should say one of my most frequently asked questions, because I am saying sell on stories, share your offer on stories. And some of you are like, 5 people watch my stories, so how am I supposed to sell on my Instagram stories? And I get it. I really do. I'm going to get real, raw, and honest with you here. Actually, do I even need to say that anymore? Because you already know, if you're listening to this podcast, that in every single episode, I'm going to get real, raw, and honest. But, anyways, my average story views are low. I want you to guess what my story views are prior to implementing the things that I'm going to share with you inside of this episode. I want you to guess what they were. Before I just told you that they were low, what number would have come to mind for you? My guess is that what you would have guessed for my story views is actually a lot higher than what my actual average is. Here it is, drum roll. Drum roll. This is really good. My average before I started implementing the tips that I'm going to share in this episode today was 2,000 views. 2,000 views. I don't even know how many followers I have right now on Instagram, but it's 280 something thousand. And I get 2,000 views on my stories. Mind blowing to me. Again, before I started implementing these tips, I want to break down some industry story view reach rate averages. That was a mouthful right there. Story view reach rate averages based on following size before I jump into my tips, because I think it's really insightful and helpful to know what's a baseline for your account based on your following size. So if you have 0 to 5,000 followers, your average reach rate is about 7.45%. 5,000 to 10,000 followers is 5.07%. 10,000 to 50,000 followers is 4.40%. 50,000 to 100,000 followers is 2.5%. And then once you hit 2,000 or above in terms of followers, 200,000 or above, it's about 0.9% for your reach rate, your average reach rate for story views. So the smaller followings have a larger story reach rate than the larger followings based on following size. So let me recap there. If you have a smaller following, your reach rate average is actually higher than the reach rate average of those who have a larger following. So just something interesting to look into there. And you can calculate that, again, the percentage based off of your exact following size. So you can see where your current story views lie in terms of those averages there. Okay, now for the good stuff that you actually came for. I'm going to start out with 4 tips to boost story views that are all very helpful. Some of them you might have heard before, especially this first one. But the 5th tip is the golden nugget of this episode, so keep listening. Tip number 1, let your stories expire for 24 hours and then come back and post 2 to 3 stories that are with interactive features. So like a question box or a quiz or a poll, those are all interactive features. Now, I want to say here, this is a hack. So it doesn't work all the time. And the more frequently that you do this, the less it's going to work. So I recommend no more than 4 times a month. I would say optimally for this to work the most, for your chances of this working the most, like 1 to 2 times per month. But even if you're only doing it 1 to 2 times per month, you might recognize that sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And it's a hack. It doesn't mean it's going to work every single time. Tip number 2, Utilize your post's call to action statement to drive traffic to your story. So instead of having the call to action statement on your reel or your post, say something along the lines of tap the link in my bio, use a call to action statement. If you tune into my stories today, I'm sharing 4 additional tips on XYZ. The reason why this is really powerful is because our feed posts majority of the time are reaching more people than our stories currently, and oftentimes reaching people who are not tuning into our stories. So you want to utilize your feed posts and the reach that you're getting from your feed to drive traffic to your stories. Tip number 3, have your start here highlight mention what people can find in your stories and what they'll miss out on if they don't tune in. So, your start here highlight is the one that I always recommend having at the very beginning of your highlight bubbles on your feed. In your start here highlight, you're going to run through who your account is for, how you help people, what is your background, how did you get into what it is that you do, maybe a few fun facts about yourself. You might link a few different offers, maybe you link a few different freebies, but I would also include a story slide in there that says something along the lines of make sure to tune into my stories because I share, and then list the things that you share. You could say I share additional behind the scenes, I share additional tips in there. You could even say every Monday I do a Q&A session if that's something that you do. You could say that you share additional discounts or exclusive access to things, you do exclusive giveaways, like whatever it is that you do on your stories that people will miss out on if they don't tune into your stories, list it there. And I would also say too, this is like a little bonus tip on the side. If you really want people to tune into your stories, you could even put a little line in your bio, on your Instagram bio, that says something along the lines of tune into stories daily for blank. And then you could fill in the blank there. And you can put that in your stories, or sorry, in your bio for, I don't know, maybe a few months or so to get more people to watch your stories. And so you can put that in there if you want to. Again, you don't have to. Tip number 4, get people to add you to their favorites feed because your content will then show up higher and rank higher in their home feed, which is the feed that people see when they enter the Instagram app. So anything that ranks higher means that it's more likely to get interacted with. And this also applies to your stories as well. Okay, now for 5, my best tip, my last tip. By using the technique that I'm about to share, my story views went from 2,000, drum roll, to 11,500 on average. Now, the technique that I use to increase my story views by that much is using the call to action statement that says DM me blank and I will then send you blank, or hit reply and say blank and I'll DM you blank. So utilizing that on stories has been very powerful. And then I will have an automation set up to deliver whatever it is that I said that I would send them if they sent me a specific word in direct messages, specifically as a reply to the story, right? So I use ManyChat for all my automations on Instagram. I'll leave a link in the show notes that will get you a month of the pro account for free. But I also just want to say a side note here about ManyChat. It's actually free to use, so you don't have to start a subscription if you don't want to. Start on the free account, see if you like it, play around with it, and then you can upgrade and get more features with the pro account if you're wanting to. Now, with this technique that I shared, I want to note that you don't have to have people DM you for a link. You can really get creative with what you can share with people outside of just a link. Oftentimes, what you'll see people use that call to action statement for is sending a link. They'll say, DM me the word scale, and I'll send you a link to my scalability program. That's great. You can utilize it in that way, but you can also utilize it in other creative ways that I'll get into in just a second as well. But I want to share why this works. Why does this technique work so well? Instagram loves when something that you've posted creates conversation in the direct messages. So, yes, there is conversation that technically happens like in comment sections of posts and things like that. But really, truly, like what Instagram is looking for in terms of creating conversation, and I say that with like air quotes. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see me quoting right now, but creating conversation is specific to getting people to direct message you. So Instagram loves that. They love when something that you posted, and since we're specifically talking about stories, when they love when your stories are creating conversation. So the more conversation that you can create, the higher your content will rank and the more story views you'll get. So that's why it works in terms of the algorithm. Just wanted to preface that. This isn't just something where I'm like, hi, Maya says so. No, this is something that is actually based off of how the algorithm works. Now, how do you implement this technique? I'm going to run you through a few different steps. Step one, the first story will be having viewers direct message you for a link. This link could be to an offer, but I personally recommend leading them to your email list with a freebie. So, utilizing that lead magnet that you hopefully have. If you don't have one, go out and build one. Start building your email list. That is, exit out of this episode, start doing that right now. That is the most important thing. So I would have that link lead to your email list, and then they can download that, so that they're getting something for free in return for direct messaging you a certain word versus them having to buy something from you. That being said, you 100% can send people to an offer if you have people frequently respond to that type of call to action on your feed content and on your story content. Meaning that if you have a lot of people who would respond to your call to action statement saying, let me give an example. Maybe you have a call to action statement on your stories that says, hit reply and say, I'm trying to think of a word, water bottle, and I'll send you a link to my course on why you should drink more water, right? You can definitely do that if you think that there's going to be a lot of people who will DM you for the link to that course. But I would say that you're going to get a lot more people to DM you that specific word, whatever the word is, if it's leading people to something that they're going to get for free, like your email list. It could either be a general opt-in for your email list, but I would recommend a freebie. Now, I just want to note that step one, this story doesn't have to be posted after your other stories have expired. So you don't have to do what I said in tip one and let all of your stories expire to start implementing these tips here. You can just post it whenever it is convenient for you. Now, step two is to post a few, meaning like 3 to 5, I would say no more than 7 stories after the story from step number one. So the one that you just set up the automation for, that's hopefully going to lead to your email list of some sort. Just post a few stories. They don't have to be anything specific. They don't have to be anything strategic. Just whatever you would regularly be sharing on your stories that day, that's what you're going to want to be posting there. And then step three, after you've done that, where you've posted 3 to 5 stories that are just regular stories that you would be posting, then you're going to want to post a story where people can DM you a certain word to get additional free information here. Now, this is different than what I said in step one, is sending them to a link, and that link could either be to an offer or to your email list, or maybe to a blog post, maybe to a podcast episode. Step three is sending them additional information. So this isn't adding in any sort of links here. So maybe you share 3 tips on your stories, and then people can DM you for an additional 2 tips. Maybe you share a list of 5 resources and people can DM you for 10 additional resources. Maybe you share a breakdown of 2 tools that you love and people can DM you for the comprehensive list of tools that you use, because maybe you use 10 tools instead of 2, but you don't want to run through and have 10 different stories breaking down all these things. So you can have people DM you for that. And you really want to get creative here and really think about information or additional things your audience would want so that they'll DM you to get it. Now, again, this doesn't have to be niche specific. Getting creative here. Maybe you're a fitness coach for postpartum moms and you share your favorite books because you share about that often on stories and people ask you about it and what it is that you recommend. Or maybe you've compiled a list of blog posts on a certain topic that you can share as a resource to people. Or maybe you can share a list of things that you wish you had known when you became a mom. Like, again, it doesn't have to be niche specific. Just thinking about what are things that your audience is asking you for? What do you think that they would find value in, that they would want to direct message you? So that is it for implementing it. It's just 3 simple steps. Let me recap really quick. Step number 1 is having a story automation set up where people will DM you for a link. Step number 2 is posting 3 to 5 stories after the automated story in step number 1. Just stories that are whatever you would post from your regular day-to-day life. Step number 3 is then posting an automated story where people can DM you to get additional information of some sort. This one specifically not being to a link. This is just where you would send text or maybe pictures or something along those lines in the DMs for them to get additional information here. Now, 2 questions that probably are going to come up that I want to touch on. Do you have to do this on your stories every single day? for you to see an increase in views. No, but I would recommend at least 1 to 2 times a week to boost story views. And what you'll see though, and this is really cool, what you'll see is that there's a residual effect over time. So the more times that you do it and boost these story views, the more people will start watching consistently on your stories. So even when you're not doing these automations, your story views will start to increase because more people are tuning in. Therefore, your stories are ranking higher on their story feed. And the more people that tune into your stories, that tells the algorithm, hey, these people like this. I'm going to show it then to even the people who are not viewing. So then suddenly your story bubble is getting bumped up to one of those front spots, even for the people who are not consistently watching your stories there. So it does have residual effect. So I do recommend doing it a few times per week. And hopefully over time, you'll see those views grow. Number 2, do you have to do 2 different automations in stories for this to work? I personally have found that views grow the most when you have these 2 different automations set up. So step 1 and step 3, but you can definitely do it with only one automation as well. The biggest thing is just making sure that whatever you're sharing will get people to hit reply on that story and direct message you. And I should add in a third question here as well that probably will come up is when you say have people DM you, are you specifically saying hit reply on the story or have people exit out of the story and DM? You want people to hit reply on that story and DM you a certain word. So when they hit reply, that's automatically going to obviously send you a direct message. You don't want them to exit out of that story and then enter into your direct messages and send you a message. So if for your audience, if they're getting confused and you want to make it more clear, instead of using the call to action statement that says DM me blank and I'll send you blank, use the call to action statement that says hit reply on this story and send me blank word and I'll send you blank. So that way they know to hit reply on the story because it's not doing you any good. It is doing you good, but not specifically for boosting story views. If someone exits out of the story and then direct message, you want them to DM you and have interaction in the story itself. Now, big disclaimer here. You will not see an increase in story views if whatever you've posted on your stories does not get people to direct message you. This only works if people DM you and if the number of people DMing you is a good amount. If you have 2K story views, for example, so 2,000 story views, I would say you need around like 100-ish people or more to DM you for you to start seeing your story views start to increase. Is that to say that it has to be exactly 100? No, it depends on a lot of different factors and the way that your stories are already ranked inside the algorithm, how many people are already interacting with your story. There's a lot of different factors that play into that, but I would say around that 100 replies mark is when you're going to start to see your story views increase by a lot. Is that to say that you won't see any increase in your stories before 100? No, definitely not the case. Again, there's a lot of factors that play into that. The biggest thing is that you have to get people to hit reply and DM you, or else this isn't going to work out. So it has to be whatever you're sharing on your stories has to be enticing for people. And this is something you're going to have to experiment with. The first few times that I did this, there were a few people who DM'd me, but it wasn't enough for it to start to increase my story views until I really figured out what it is that my audience will message me for because they see value in it. And so you'll see me do this oftentimes. Probably I do this at least one time a week. So if you're watching my stories, you'll see me do this where I will post, like I'd say the most common one that I do is I'll say, here are 10 different hooks that you can use on your content. And then I'll list like usually 4 of them on the story slide with examples. And then I'll say, hit reply on this story for tips number 6 through 10 or whatever. Or I guess it would be 5 through 10 if I only shared 4 on there. So that's where they're going to get additional hooks direct message to them. Sorry, I said tips, but I meant hooks. So if they hit reply, they're going to get hooks number 5 through 10 because there's hooks number 1 through 4 on the stories. Okay, that was really confusing. I'm confusing myself. Let me just make that more clear. The one that I post the most on stories that you'll see is I will say, here are 10 different hooks that you can use this week in your content. I'll give them hooks number 1 through 4 on that story slide. I will say, DM me a certain word or hit reply with a certain word, and I will send you hooks 5 through 10. So they're getting the value of those hooks direct message to them. And I have a lot of people who respond to that. Again, is this to say that you can't ever have this automation lead to like having people DM you for a link to one of your offers? No, you can definitely use that. But I would just say if you don't have a lot of people who are DMing you for that link, you're not going to see necessarily a story view boost. You might see sales boosts from that, which is great, right? That's a totally different purpose. But for the sake of this, in boosting story views, we're not talking about sales. We're not talking about any of that other strategy, specifically sales boosting. Sorry, oh my goodness, I'm getting so many words mixed up here. And specifically in terms of story view boosting strategies, what I shared in this episode is best for that. Now, before I close off this episode, I just want to say that your story views don't dictate your sales or your success. I've had pretty low story views. If we're talking in relation to my following size, pretty much since I started my business, with the exception of the last like month since I've started implementing the tip number 5 that I shared, which is that golden nugget. And I've been able to, even with the low amount of story views, amass a really large amount of sales, like 80% of my sales from my stories. So my point is, stop using low story views as an excuse to not sell consistently or at all. But I do hope that this episode and these 5 tips give you really good strategies that you can start utilizing in 2024 to increase those story views, which hopefully will also help to increase your sales as well.